What's up guys, it's your host, Spartanic Arts DxD, back with another high school DxD related video, and this is What If Issei Was Betrayed and Snapped Part 7. And we are on Chapter 21, The Next Step. Once again, thank you for all the support, and if you guys want to know when I exactly upload, join the little blue button right next to the subscribe button, and please subscribe as well, that'd be wonderful, as of like the video too. So again, thank you so much for all the support, and let me know what you guys think about hearing What If Naruto Was Betrayed, because I do have quite the story for that. So again, thank you all for all your support, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Chapter 21, The Next Step. You have to be kidding me, Issei said in utter disbelief as he attended the last alliance meeting. No, we are not. It's a very dire situation, Zerek said with a grim expression on his face. That old bastard, he managed to steal a whole fucking island? Issei said in disbelief. Indeed, and right now, recovering the floating city of Ergas is our top priority, as Azel said with a nod. Though I am inclined to ask, Issei was the second time you could have killed Retrieval, but didn't? Michael asked, looking directly at Issei. As he did, Gabriel looked on slightly worried, not wanting her brother and lover to fight again. That's right, Issei said with a nod, already knowing where this conversation was going. Why didn't you kill him then? It would have saved us quite a headache, Michael said. I didn't kill that son of a bitch because he wasn't my kill to claim. The only one in the world who deserves to kill that bastard is Vali, Issei said as he glanced to Vali, who was sitting next to Azazel. Vali threw Issei a thankful nod, who just smiled in return. With that out of the way, is our current game plan on getting Agrez back? Asked Issei. We already have our best trackers looking for it. As soon as we find it, we'll gather a force before attacking and reclaiming it, Zerek said, making Issei nod in understanding. Well, if that's all, we shall be leaving. I have some important things to catch up on. For example, my beauty sleep, as Azel said, making everyone chuckle at the joke they left in their respective magic circles. Issei then stretched a little before he teleported himself to his HQ. It already was nighttime, and apart from his faction's Big Seven, everyone was asleep. Entering his office, he was greeted by an informed mention. All of them looked up to see Issei worriedly asking for information. We're going to be preparing for battle. I will be going in alone. The 7 you will be leading are 7 of our battle platoons. The people who can't fight will remain in HQ, which will be sealed by Gregor. Gregor, the seal you should use be the one that can be opened immediately if people inside the HQ are in any form of danger. Are we in agreement? Asked Issei. Are you going in alone? Will you be okay? Asked Gregor. Yeah, me and Tanin, Crom, Crunch, and Vali are going to be the opening wave. I am sure we'll be able to handle anything they throw at us. You guys should be able to put your parts and everything will go out without a hitch. After that, we'll have a celebration party, Issei said, getting nods of acknowledgement around the room. Alright then, get some rest and seize all other missions. We are expected to move in a week. When the next tracking report comes in, relax and get yourselves attuned until then. Dismissed, Issei said as the 7 people bowed out before leaving the room. Issei sighed tiredly as he slumped into his seat. He could feel that something big and bad was about to go down regardless of how much he or the Alliance as a whole tried to stop it. He couldn't explain it even if the air had an evil aura floating in it. A sense of forbidding hung around the surroundings. You seem tired, Dreg, a monotonous voice said from above him. That I am, Orphis. How can I help you? Asked Issei, his eyes still closed. I want to ask how you plan on dealing with Lilith. I am sure that you know she is currently stronger than me, Orphis said. I'll win her over just like I made accept you as your Oni-chan, Issei said as he grabbed Orphis on his lap and softly patted the lowly dragon god's head. But I don't like sharing Onisama's lap with everyone else. It's my personal space, Orphis said with a slight pout. Don't worry, Lilith is technically a part of you. Consider her a sister who's going through what you had to go through before you found me in Vali. We'll rescue you just like we rescued you, Issei said with a reassuring smile. Will you really do that? Orphis asked. Of course. What are brothers for? It's our job to protect our younger sisters from the mean old world out there, Issei said as he pulled Orphis into a soft hug. Good luck, Onisama, Orphis said in a monotone. Don't worry, Orphis, we will come back safely, Issei said as Orphis nodded before disappearing in a wisp of smoke. She must have gone to visit Vali. I wonder what's going on in that brain of his. So this part is another one of those 18 plus scenes, so there's no warning. I'm not going to read this part. I'm just going to skip over to chapter 22 because I don't feel comfortable reading this out loud. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go to chapter 22. Chapter 22, Beginning of the End, Part 1. So the flying stolen island has been located, asked Issei. Yes, it has. We are launching our retrieval mission in a couple of hours, as Azel told the room. So the initial wave remains the same, huh? Me, Issei, and Crom run riot while you guys come up and take out the rest, Vali asked. That's exactly it. You are the heavy hitters of the Alliance. We need a good opening statement, Serzek said. How nice. What about several ultimate devils that join the Rizavim? No disrespect, but they are freaking powerful, specifically Belial. Issei said as he leaned against the wall and folded his arms. 2 of them have already been dealt with by Syrorg and Saji, while the third one turned herself in and helped the Syrorg and Saji beat the others. So the only one we need to be careful of is Biela, Ajuka said. So a Super Devil with safer gear canceling abilities, which has upgraded in a borderline Super Devil with the ability to make powers and abilities worthless? How nice, Issei sarcastically said. Nonetheless, we also need to consider the 3 evil dragons that still side with Rizavim, Grendel, Labion, and Northurg. It is simultaneously a good and bad thing that Asuka and Aphius have abandoned Rizavim. Now we have no idea where they are and what they are cooking up, Vali stated. Don't worry about them. They are much more intelligent than the other dragons and will wait, so they are not an immediate concern. However, they have planned won't be anything less than sinister to the extreme, Crom stated thoughtfully, making the whole room go silent. I guess we'll have someone like Odin and Zeus keep an eye out for them while we deal with Rizavim. Even both of them will think twice before engaging 2 high-tier gods. For the battle plan. I'll be taking my Elite 7 and make sure that Vali will be taking his team as well. Me and Vali and Crom will deal with the 3 evil dragons while our teams will handle any cavalry. After the Serzex and Azazel arrive, me and Vali will deal with the Rizavim and Biel, Issei stated, making everyone nod. If we are all agreed, let's move out. We have a giant flying island to take back, Serzex said. Before he could leave, though, Issei spoke up and said, though I am curious, why is the floating island of edges so important to the devils? Don't get me wrong, but the interest the devil hierarchy has been showing leaves a lot to be questioned. All 4 mouths available at the meeting froze at the question. It was after a few moments that Serzex sighed deeply and said, I am sure all of you know evil pieces that us devils use. When everyone nodded, he continued and said, the blessing reincarnation wasn't always available to us. The Great War and the Civil War literally cut us down to the very mirage of numbers. Added to our very low fatality rates, it was on course to extinction. That was, however, until Ajuka researched the flying island. The amount of energy it radiated was simply staggering. In fact, it was much times more potent than any regular soul energy. Naturally, this fact piqued his curiosity, and he began deeper research into the agrees. Among the findings, that was the energy actually came from the crystals that grew at Aegis. It was those crystals that kept the island floating. After research and experimentation, we finally found to recreate life, and hence the evil pieces were born. Now, I am sure you can guess why the agrees is important to us, Serzex finished blankly. Vali groaned before saying, that makes it even more dangerous. Think, why would Rizavim need that much potent magical energy? He's trying to release the Trihexa. Forget the regular plan, I say we go all in. We need to get him before he activates his plan. Dulio and Toby, along with his team, can act as the shadow workers and cover up for any loopholes we leave. I concur the situation at hand, either all in or not, Issei added with a nod. Fine, then I'll gather our forces. We should be ready to move out in 1 hour, Fublum said. So will I, as Hazel noted before he left the room. One by one, everyone left to prepare what we call the turning point in the war. An hour later, gigantic force from the Alliance marched towards the floating island. Once near, Issei spotted the 3 evil dragons waiting. He turned to his squad and said, leave Neohar to me. That bastard has it coming for what he did to Orphis. Reference to the canon scene in the light novel, by the way, if you guys haven't read it. He then flew towards the Norse serpent and called out, Balance Breaker. Heavenly Dragon King, Balance Breaker. In a flash, he was in a black scale mail and crashed into the smaller Norse serpent, who was thrown back by the force of Issei's blow. Issei watched in disgust as the mad serpent spat out a large amount of saliva. Issei stared at it and tried to get back up. However, he didn't give it a chance and started attacking it with as much barrage attacks. They were many in number, which have them holding a fixed amount of power. He was content increasing the suffering time for someone who had harmed his sister-like figure. How do you feel now, you bastard? I will make you feel everything you did to Orphis multiplied by 100, Issei said before slamming Neotarg into the wall. He then flew into the air before spreading his wings and called out, as AI called out, compression divider. Neohard roared in pain as he felt the very existence disappear. The suffering of his foe deepered as AI continued calling out, divide, divide. AI continued to chant until the very existence of Neohard had been divided and disappeared. His battle complete, and his faction, the Alliance soldiers, already taking care of the small fry, he flew towards the building where he felt the rest of him would be waiting. However, he stopped midway before he got it close and sensed Lilith's aura inside. He knew he couldn't face her alone, and so stopped his ascent and started killing the surrounded evil dragons as he waited for Vali and Crom to appear. Now, scene break, we are with Vali. Vali flew right towards Ladon. He was the only dragon with enough abilities to actually make it a close technique fight with Vali. Vali's first move was to fire a simple dragon shot at Landon, who batted it away with the shield of one of his heads. Nodding to himself, he brought his Heavenly Dragon King scale mail. He then created a very, very, very large number of weapons. All of them were pure magical energy. Without wasting a single moment, he fired all of his spears and javelins at Landon, who jumped back and activated his strongest shield. Vali then concentrated a large number of magic into a small ball and then fired it at the one point of Ladon's shield. The potent orb expanded upon the contact and broke Ladon's shield for that point. Albion then called out, reflect. At the same time, Fafnir's voice rang out, creation field wheel. A goldish blue wheel was created and it fit itself into a broken part of the shield and then stopped it from regenerating. Fafnir then called out, creation field, twin blades. As he called out, the two mid-sized blades appeared in Vali's hands and then spread his wings to the maximum and jetted through the hole he had created, and then with Fafnir began cutting down each of one of Landon's heads with a frightening accuracy as he raised his way to the sentry life, maintaining the head of Landon. The central head was backing away in fear. He had been prepared for Vali using the reference from their old fight. He, however, wasn't expecting Vali with this much magical potency and power, not to mention his newfound speed and finesse. It was sure to Landon that despite him getting an upgrade from the Holy Grail, it was clear that Vali had triple uppered his training and now on a slaughter path. Just as he was about to swing towards Landon's made head and smiled and said, this was a worthy battle, my young foe. I shall face you again when my energy is once allowed to take physical form. With that, Ladon closed his eyes and let Vali's sword cut him down, not letting him regenerate. Vali then took a deep breath before being spotted by Issei fighting some minor evil dragons. Curious, he decided to join up with him to see what was keeping him from progressing further. Now, with Crom, scene break. Crom sighed as he saw Vali and Issei flying towards their opponents. The brats had left him with the stupidest of the annoying evil dragons. Ha ha. So I get to face you, huh, Crom? I will kill you today, and everyone will see why I am the strongest evil dragon to exist, Grendel said, with a maniacal laugh as he spotted Crom. Crom boredly looked at Grendel and cleaned his nails from his shirt as he said, really? You just seem like a waste of time to me. Grendel roared in indignation before launching himself at Crom. Crom merely tilted himself downwards before he punched Crom to the ground. Despite having the strongest scales among the dragons, Grendel couldn't help but feel the weight of the punch as he crashed into the ground. You claim to be the strongest evil dragon, huh? Crom asked as his face morphed into a maniacal grin. He then proceeded to transform or released his midnight black dragon form. He then dashed towards Grendel and lifted him up before piercing him into the ground. He began moving around, taking the still-pieced Grendel with him. Crom then proceeded to throw Grendel into the air, before he dashed at him and buried his claw deep into Grendel's chest. Grendel may have the strongest scales among the living dragons, but Crom wasn't known as the only living dragon to be at Heavenly Dragon level without any reason, which is why he's able to encompass through Grendel's scales. He then once again sent Grendel crashing into the ground. Crom then decided to throw in a final shoe and show every dragon on Ramai who was the apex predator amongst them. He then threw the two young dragon emperors, would they reach his level, but until then he was going to remind of them at their station as a superior. With the thought, he began unleashing a golden colored aura that shook the very foundations of the area they were in. Everyone from the meshes to the evil dragons to the soldiers in the Alliance army that included influential figures like Tobia, Dulio, and to the Vali team and the hero faction, finally Rizavim and his crew as well, stopped to look at the magnificence at Crom. The golden aura was now causing stones to rise in the air. Issei couldn't help but be slightly suffocated as he stared at the spectral in awe. Vali wasn't far behind as he couldn't help but stare at the sight before him. Watch closely, partner. That is the level every mortal dragon aims to achieve, but only a few handpicked manage to reach it, Drake said out loud. So that's the heavenly level under control, huh? Issei said. Indeed it is. While me and Drake have no doubts that you and Vali will eventually reach it, you are still several leagues away from it, and you will even help our sacred gears, Albion answered. Damn, Vali said breathlessly. Damn indeed. Ugly brother of mine, damn indeed, Issei said. Two interest by Spectral in front of Vali ignored the jab and stored it away in his brain to use the occasion in the future. Crom then decided to restart his assault on the now sweating Grundle. He disappeared in a golden flash. In mere moments, Grendel found himself flung into the air with both of his wings ripped away from his body. Crom then charged his golden aura and focused it into a fist. He then thrust his fist towards Grendel, and a very large golden wave of magical energy surged forward and flew towards Grendel, hitting the crime force dragon head on. Grendel roared in pain and agony as the blast overwhelmed him. His scales were futilely trying to protect him, but were failing badly. Soon he was completely overcome by the giant blast and was overtaken. The result in a large explosion ensuing. When the smoke had been cleared, everyone was shocked to see the complete disappearance of Grendel. Seeing that, Crom nodded his head in satisfaction before reverting back into his human form. He then blew on his fist before putting it back down. He then flew down in Issei and Vali to discuss the next course of action. The ending of his battle and the rest of the Alliance soldiers were their stupor and began attacking the evil dragons, taking them out one by one. A few moments later, Crom joined Issei and Vali and said, "Why are you two not moving forward? I would have thought that you have rushed in and take Retrieval as soon as you were done. I did not think about that we merely are severely outnumbered. I am sure Retrieval has Bill, Koko, and include all waiting. Not to mention there's Lilith to think about as well," Issei said before getting a nod from Vali. "I see. It was the right move to wait then. I think it would be prudent to wait for Sirzex to get here before we go in," Crom said with a nod. "By the way, what happened to Grendel?" Vali curiously asked. "I removed him from the plane of ever existing. He will now never be reformed or live again. I ended him in the most literal way possible," Crom said with a shrug. "So in a way, that attack was your version of my Longina Smasher and Vali's Compression Divider," Issei said with a nod. The trio were soon joined by Sirzex and then proceeded towards the central tower, where they would face Retrieval and his remaining cronies. That is Chapter 22, beginning of the end. Chapter 24, the battle begins. Issei vs. Koko. Alright, everyone is here. Who exactly faces who? Issei asked as soon as Sirzex joined the group. "I called dibs on Retrieval. There is no way that bastard is going to escape my wrath this time around," Vali said in a strong voice, making everyone nod. "Leave BL to me. I am sure that I am the best equipped to face someone with his worthless ability," Crom said with garnering nods from the group. "I will look for and take care of Euclid. He has caused more than enough problems and sadness for Grafie already. I am going to bring him in," Sirzex said in a blank voice. However, the anger in his eyes was not lost to anyone. His aura itself was on a whole other level. "Then that leaves me with the sniffling bastard Koko. I still haven't gotten him back for the damage he inflicted on Gabijan," Issei said as his face turned feral as a sinister grin made its way onto his face. "Alright, let's move out. If anyone gets a visual on the Triax's sealed form, do your best to destroy it and call the rest of us," Sirzex said as he delivered the last of the orders before the quadruple moved into the central building. As soon as they entered, they found Koko waiting for them. His eyes closed and his face supported a rather sincere expression. As soon as they got close, he opened his eyes and stared at the foursome and said, "Greetings, Trichils, Meo Dono and King of the Evil Dragons. Rizvum-sama has been expecting you. As you have noticed, I am here to stop you." "Well then, let's see how you managed to do that. Go, guys," Issei said as he stopped in front of the group. As soon as he stepped forward, Drake, Vitra, and AI all wrote out, "Heavenly Dragon King, Balance Breaker, Scale Mail Level 3. You guys go ahead. I will take care of him and meet you later," Issei said without looking at the trio behind him. The other three nodded before they proceeded to walk away. Koko made no motion to stop them. He himself knew that he did not stand even a remote chance against someone like Sirzex or Crom. "You should have joined our purpose. It would have been much more easy as someone of your caliber decided to join the Quillipoth," Koko said to Issei. His eyes were closed. As if I joined this crap. I'm really glad you left the hero faction. Those lads are really nice when not bothered by assholes like you, Issei snapped back. Koko did not immediately reply, instead gave a maniacal grin before he opened his eyes. Issei gasped when he saw them. Instead of having normal human eyes, he now supported two purple serpentine eyes with black slits cutting down the middle. Oh, interesting. I see in the end you are way too cowardly to complete your goals with the morals are still in place, Issei commented. Don't talk as if you know me, you filthy half-breed. I lost all hope in man's power to fight the supernatural, which is why I abandoned those hopeless causes. I took on a new power that made me the new Serpentine King. I absorbed the power of Medusa into me, he snapped back. Interesting. The power of the Queen of the Serpents with that of the three dragons. It should be interesting, Issei said, before he fired a large dragon shot at Koko. Koko didn't move from his spot. Instead, his eyes glowed a bit before the attacks just froze in midair before turning to stone. However, he was hastily forced to bring a true Longina spear in front of him, as if to block the X-shaped dual sword slash aimed at him. The force of the slash, however, was more than enough to push him back a few paces. Looking, he found Issei in his black scale mail with 8 white wings, green orbs, and yellow eyes, holding a blue and red blade, and one hand in black in the other one. You have grown even stronger than our recent extrusion, Koko commented. The one in which you ran away and your tail between your legs, Issei taunted? You'll pay for that Polar Knight Longinus, Kravion. Koko called out and released the 7 hidden treasures from his gear. Issei, on the other hand, sharpened his senses to the maximum before he raised his swords ready for battle. He knew how effective those 7 treasures really were. He wasn't really worried about the eyes of Medusa, as his reserves were more than large enough to counter his stultification. Kakavil Ratana, Koko called out. Immediately, the 15 knight-like structures came out of the 7 treasures. Issei was immediately on guard. However, Koko was not done. Asturo Rataria. As soon as he called out, of the 15 of the knights-like structures began to randomly teleport around Issei, creating opportunities to attack them from several sides. Issei, to avoid being hit from the impossible angles, threw Red Queen into the ground and called out, Sure no Tate! A red force field was erected around Issei's immediate surroundings, offering him a 360-degree protection from the attacks. However, Koko once again proved to be relentless as he released yet another Astuta Rataria before using it to teleport behind Issei. Once he changed to charge his power, he then shouted, Balad Kinyakya Rantaria. A huge force impacted Issei's shield, shattering it before sending Issei flying into the air. At once, all 15 knights attacked him. Nothing but came out of the solid spikes emerged from within the shadows, impaling the knights and causing them to disintegrate into the shadows. Issei gracefully landed on the ground and said, Prison of Shadows. Shadows then emerged from the ground and rushed towards Koko, who jumped into the forest air before calling out, Hastuda Rataria. As he called out, began floating in the air, completely safe from the shadows' prison. However, Koko, not wanting to relent in his assault, immediately called out, Eyes of Medusa, Magical Paralysis. His eyes shone a deep violet, causing the shadows then himself turn into stone. Koko then caused the stone to break with a small blast. He then banished the stone and rubbled towards Issei, temporarily blocking his vision. He then charged and brought down the true Longinus in a sharp slash, hitting Issei dead on, causing him to crash into the wall, resulting in a small explosion. When the smoke from the said explosion had dissipated, Issei was sent embedded into the wall with a little crack on his armor that was easily fixed. Not bad, but you'll need to up your game if you wish to win. That attack barely even scratched me. Now it's my turn, Issei said before his wings flared into action and disappeared in a burst of speed. Appeared behind Koko, began jabbing him at a very fast rate of all of his punches making contact. He then brought his hands together and sent a strong magical attack in Koko's stomach, making him fly through the wall. When the rubble and dust had cleared away, Issei, an unconscious and heavily bleeding Koko on the floor, with the true Longinus feeling down a few steps away from him. However, Koko's body had suddenly begun to bubble and has soon exploded. In its place was a now 30-foot in long head 7-headed serpent with a female body connected on the top of the central head. Medusa was out in the open and unchained. Finally, I am free from that blasted rat, and now I can finally enjoy a good meal for myself, Medusa said hungrily at Issei. Guys, have any idea of how to deal with this infraction? Issei mentally asked. Use the true Longinus over there, Albion said before making Issei mentally gape at him. However, before Issei could retort, Veacher said, That's not a bad idea. You should be able to use it since the current user was killed in battle versus you. And the sacred gears are semi-sentient, so they don't immediately vanish, Vitra said, diminishing Issei's doubts but not completely removing them. Do it, partner. Nothing else we will have will work on Medusa right now. That beast is easily stronger than Retrieval, and you can't use Juggernaut Drive since you may still have to face a few further opponents. Not to mention the true Longinus will be very helpful if push comes to shove versus the Triax said, making Issei nod. Really, is it that powerful? Issei said in a shocked manner. He knew the true Longinus was strong gear, but not to be able to seal the beast of the apocalypse was something he did not expect. Before any of his 3 dragons could reply, he was forced to jump out of the way as the head of Medusa lunged at him. However, that was the beginning. At all once 6 heads moved to attack him, coming from all sides. Issei once again erected the barrier since the Red Queen had stopped to take a break from the very strong, fast and vicious outbreak from Medusa. This isn't working. How in the 7 realms of hell was Koko able to conceal something this powerful into his own body? Harry furiously asked in his head. He must have been using the power from the true Longinus. I can't think of any reason, since Medusa is said to be the least at Dragon King level, and one in front of him seems to have been enhanced by the Seraphalk Raw. So it's easily at the heavenly level, Vitra asked. The best option will be to get the gear to spur in your hand. You will know what to do when you have it in your hand, Drake answered, his voice suddenly turning cryptic. And how do you suggest that I use it on the Great One? In case that you haven't noticed, this is several levels above me. The only chance I have is to go into Juggernaut, Issei snarked back. Aren't you the Heavenly Dragon King? Just boost your power up and explode it outwards before creating the diversion you needed. Albion smirked right back at Issei, inwardly his palm faced. It was then his gauntlet showed Drake's voice rang out. Boost! 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 Drake called out as the fear red-black aura erupted around Issei before giving a loud roar, causing it hurtle outwards. This burst made Medusa lose its temporary control and lost sight of its eyesight. For a few moments, Issei took full advantage of that and made a grab at the true Longinus. As soon as he held it out, it went into his balance breaker state and 7 orbs were seen floating. Drake was right. Issei mused, because as soon as the true Longinus was in his hands, he just knew what he needed to do. Drake, charge it up once more. Albion, take the force out of its attacks using half dimension. Vitra, use our strongest shadows to keep the bastard in place while we're ending this, Issei shouted at Vitra. Drake and Albion immediately started calling out, Shadow Binding. Tendrillus. Vitra called out. Immediately, several large tendrils and chains of shadows erupted from the ground and wrapped themselves around the new thrashing Medusa. Half dimension. AI called out as the wings of his scale mail flared and began sapping the strength from the thrashing queen of serpents. Boost! 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 Drake called out and Issei felt his power fill up within him. Don't fail me now, true Longinus, Issei muttered to the spear in his hands and the orbs around him. He then steeled his eyes and said, Ostia Rataria. As he said it, he teleported right on top of Medusa before he pointed the spear at the Queen Serpents and said, Do it now, Drake! Transfer! Drake roared out and transferred all of the collected energy into the 7 orbs of the true Longinus. Baltikina Ratania! Issei roared out, ending a supercharged blast at the restrained Queen of Serpents and completely obliterated it, wiping it from its very existence. However, he did not have the time to react as he suddenly teleported to the black arena with nothing in sight. However, he was glad that all 3 of the dragons were with him, standing close to him in a protective manner. What's going on here? Where are we? How did we get here? Why are we here? Issei asked aloud. However, it was not any of those dragons who answered. It was the voice coming from the figure in front of him. Isn't it obvious? The place of the limbo abyss, as you call it for now. Why? I brought you here because I wanted to talk to you, the figure said as he stepped foot meters away from Issei. Drake, AI, and Vitra. Issei could hear all 3 of the dragons of his growling behind him. It was sure that the figure in front of him was powerful. However, he could have a question that was figured for his identity. Drake beat him to him and said, It's been a while, hasn't it, God of the Bible? And that's the end of the chapter 24. The battle begins. Chapter 25, Serzex vs. Lucid. It's been a while, has it not, God of the Bible? Drake growled out as much to Issei's shock. Why, yes, it has been, old friend, God said with the amused smirked. Elsewhere, with Serzex, so scene break, we're going to start the fight with Serzex versus Lucid. Sir Zex was the next one to break away from the group as he soon faced his chosen competitor, Elucid. Both Elucid and Sir Zex started each other at the dawn while Elucid said, "Sir Zex," he intoned with a nod. "Elucid," Sir Zex replied blankly. "What are you going to do here, Sir Zex?" Elucid asked. "I am going to bring you in. You are going to pay for all the emotional strife you put my Graphia through," Sir Zex said as his eyes suddenly began to glow with power. "Ah, it seems that we are at an impasse, since I definitely won't be going with you. Though I am glad Nichan married someone who deeply cares for her and loves her," Elucid said as he began powering up as well. Sir Zex was inwardly surprised by the line as he spoke but did not show it. After a small stare, Doth-bound devils launched themselves at each other and began hand-to-hand confrontation. For a moment, neither of them seemed to be gaining upper hand on the battle, was slowly but steadily speeding up and was growing with intensity as both ultimate class devils and super devils were increasing their power with each punch and kick. Elucid, however, knew he couldn't keep up with Sir Zex in speed and intensity for long. Sir Zex, unlike him, wasn't an ordinary ultimate class devil. He was freaking super devil, someone with enough strength to be ranked among the top 10 in the world. He was bought out of his musings when Sir Zex suddenly notched up his speed and exponentially broke the deadlock with a powerful jab sent him flying into the wall. Elucid, however, hurried out of the rubble and began firing concentrated blasts of demonic fire towards Sir Zex, who simply batted them away as firing a blue blast of power destruction towards Elucid, whose shield was in place to block the melee attacks. "You have improved from last time, Elucid. You weren't able to block my magical attacks as the last time we actually faced in battle," Sir Zex commented. "I am surprised to think that you would see me as the lazy type who didn't train and hone their abilities," Elucid dryly replied back. "Though it seems your fighting style hasn't changed at all much since I am able to keep up with you when you're serious," Elucid continued. Sir Zex looked at him in surprise before he laughed a bit, batted away the two magical attacks, and a punch from Elucid before punching him back. Elucid, however, was affronted by Sir Zex's reaction and voiced out his frustration. "Can you please share the joke? The way even I can't get the kick out of the situation," he sarcastically called out Sir Zex. "It's pretty funny that you think I'm even remotely close to taking you seriously. Right now, I'm simply limiting my power to upper tier ultimate class level. I have not even released the Mao level, much less my super devil power," Sir Zex amusedly told him, enjoying the slight look of shock that appeared on Elucid's face. "Well, seeing that you are currently in disbelieving mood, I shall give you a little glimpse of my true power," Sir Zex said as he flared up his magic. The power of destruction then started seeping out of his body. The power of destruction then began to condensed back as he started coating himself around at Sir Zex. When the move was complete, Sir Zex was coated around in the power of destruction, which added like an armor around his body. "Now then, let us resume. I will make you, they'll let you take the first move," Sir Zex, as his lips twitched upwards in a challenging, tauntive manner. Elucid was mad for a few moments before took a deep breath and returned Sir Zex's smirk. "I may not have super devil level, but I have too broken down the threshold of the upper tier ultimate level. Let me show you my power." As soon as he finished, his wings made of pure fire erupted in his back and he was surrounded by weapons made of the firewall. Sir Zex raised an eyebrow at that, was clearly impressed by the amount of power being displayed by Elucid. "Impressive, it seems you finally managed to match Graphia's power," Sir Zex commented. "Indeed, but now that I have Nichan, will be one of the victorious if we fight again," Elucid commented. No more words were exchanged as the duo charged each other began fighting. Elucid was manipulating his weapons made of fire, attacking the power of destruction on Sir Zex's body, stopped by any incoming attacks coming toward him, at all while causing Elucid damage whenever he got close to Sir Zex. Elucid was inwardly getting frustrated. He couldn't land a hit on Sir Zex. His armor would destroy any projectile coming towards him before it actually reached him, and its destructive nature made it impossible to cause him physical harm. All of this was very well and good, and now I need to end this, Sir Zex said as he disappeared in a burst of speed, reappearing behind Elucid. Elucid was unable to react to his went black, and he knocked out cold by a chop of his neck by Sir Zex, as he fell down of his magic and dissipated away, leaving behind Elucid in his basic form. Sir Zex powered down before he bent down to lift up Elucid. However, he then spotted a magical surgeon on the nape of Elucid's neck. It was the loyalty spell that seemed to be burned towards the Lucifer crest. Growling in anger at Rizavine, Sir Zex channeled a bit of his destruction into the circle, completely disintegrating it. After that, he lifted Elucid on his shoulder before leaving the building. He knew that there was no immediate concerns there. Now, scene break, we are back with Issei. "We aren't friends, and you know that, you backstabbing bastard," Drake growled out, as AI and Vitra hissed at the amused god. "Come on now, Drake, you ruined me. I thought you trusted me, god." said in his voice still amused. You lost all of mine and Albion's trust when you went behind our backs and sealed us near the end of our battle. If you wanted to fight, why didn't you ask us forefront? Were you scared of our power? Drake asked back. No, it was due to the greater reason. One that I could not have shared at the time, God said with a sad sigh. Before Drake could reply, Issei cut in and said, So this mean you're bringing here you finally going to tell him the reason and thought behind your actions? That's right, I am here to come clean about my actions from a millennia ago, God said. I'm not going to waste my time on that wacko explanation, Drake growled that irritatedly. Come on, Drake, let's hear the old man out. It won't take us long, Issei said as Drake huffed it a bit before nodding. Now then, please explain, Issei said as he crossed his arms, and turned to the god as he leaned the body back to Drake's scales. Very well, it all started with a prophecy, God said as he began the tale of a very controversial but true story, and that's the end of chapter 25, Sir Zex vs. Elucid. Chapter 26, Prophecy, the Prophecy of God's Angel. Very well. As it all started with a prophecy, God calmly stated. Prophecy? Issei asked with an expression of intrigue on his face. Yes, why do you think I suddenly decided to stop the First Great War and leave my children alone? Do you think I enjoyed that? God toyed with a little anger seeping into his voice. Chill out, Eoglim. It's not partner's fault, so keep your anger and despair to yourself. Also, get on with your story, we don't have all day, Drake cut it. Fine then, here's what happened, Elohim said as he explained the prophecy. Back into the real world, so a little bit of a scene break. It was a tense silence in the room. The only sounds heard were the very distance of the battles occurring elsewhere. The slight breeze in the room was the only one that was moving in the room. The tension and pressure in the room was so tense that it could literally be seen and caught into a simpler finger alone. In the room, about to begin, was impending battle between Crom and Bella Defar. You should leave while you still can, Delucer. Even if your power matches that of a super devil, you aren't even close to beating me, Crom said. That may be true, but it doesn't mean that I can't hold you off for a while, Bill calmly replied back, making Crom chuckle at his expense. What seems to be the joke going on here? Bill asked, is slightly irritated due to the lack of respect being shown by the evil dragon in front of him. It seems you are a little full of yourself. I am the only heavenly level being in the world, the second strongest after Orpheus. Even the Hindu god of destruction hesitates to take me on. You, who is not even completely on the super devil level, think you can hold me off. Let me show you how it's done, Gaki. Crom growled out before he disappeared in a burst of spirit and punching Bella into the wall. Bella grinned to himself before he stood up and tried to activate his ability, only to find that it wasn't working. Seeing his fusion, Crom chuckled before saying again, I know all about this little ability of yours. Worthless, I believe it is called. Let me tell you a little flaw that you may not know about your own ability. It is entirely effective against people whose reserves are 1. Larger than yours, 2. Denser than yours, and in this case, the difference is way too colossal to even compare. My reserves are like an ocean compared to yours, which measly swamp. Now then, prepare yourself, Crom said before he disappeared once again, starting beating the shit out of Bella. One major ass kicking later, Bella was unconscious, twitching on the floor. His body mangled, was full of bruises, lactations, and broken bones. Crom was standing near him and clapped the dust off his hands. Disrespectful Gakis not knowing how to respect their elders, he said before lifting Bella on, leaving it to drop his prisoner with one of the others coming back to Vali with Rizavim. Back with Issei. Scene break. Near the end of the Great 2,000 years ago, Near the end of the Great War 2,000 years ago, I had a vision of premonition, to be exact. The Beast of Annihilation would be unleashed upon this world and would fight the Dragon of Dreams, and that fight would render the end of life as a whole. The vision itself had me worried as hell, as I had planned to get the leaders of all fathers of the other factions a temporary alliance to combat the Beast of Annihilation at the end of the earth before destroying it, Elohim said before pausing a little bit. This Beast of Annihilation, as you called it, what is it? Issei asked curiously before he became confused, him hissing his partners as he saw the darkening of Elohim's eyes. That beast is the most horrific thing to ever exist. It is easily stronger than Orpheus and is equivalent to Great Red. Appearance-wise, it is a 6-headed monster, that's all I can say and will say. It is the Triaxa or 666. Anyways, before I could implement the plan, I had another premonition. It showed the coming of life's savior, a man who would, despite the challenges of betrayals in his life, would come out on top to save everyone. He would have the power of the dragons by his side and would beat the Triaxa. Elohim once again stopped, letting the current information sink in. Taking the silence cue for questions of Issei, spoke up and said, so all of your plans changed. What exactly caused the end of the Great War? Right, in 1. I abandoned my original plan set upon making my new. When the plan was done, all I had to do was erasure that all the evil pieces were in place. The first step was to befriend both Drake and Albion. When it was done, I decided to create a sacred gear system. Creating the ordinary sacred gears was easy enough, but their power was limited, so I had to look for other sources of powers for the gears, Elohim said before seeing the question in Issei's eyes. That's how most of the Longinus came to play, isn't it, Issei, as he snuck in a breath. Elohim's face broke into a dry grin. Why aren't you the smart one? You deduced correctly. I created the Longinus gears. While people do consider them bugs in the system, they are wrong. The 13 Longinus are unique in one of their own kind. Other gears may be close to their basic, but will never match their complete power of the Longinus gears. I knew that if the ordinary way of creation would work, so I started searching for alternate sources of power to use for each of the gears. He finished taking in a little breath and waited to see if Issei earlier would connect to the dots himself. So you search the alternate sources of magic, or in other words, sentient souls, powerful spells, and objects and curses, Issei deduced, making Elohim nod. Damn kid, you have got a great head on your shoulders. I can see why my daughter fell for you, Elohim said with a grin. Who's your daughter? Issei asked confusedly, making all three of his dragons sweat drop at the denseness of matters. The Seraph Gabriel is my daughter. I hope that you would treat her well, Elohim said with a little killing intent directed at Issei. Oh, okay then. You don't have to worry about me mistreating her wrong. She's my angel. I'll be cold as hell before I let anyone hurt her, Issei replied back, unfazed by the killing intent. Oh, well that's good. Now then, back at the matter at hand. As you theorized, as I began searching for the aforementioned sources of the magic, and I did find them, my first find was the Eye of the Hours that could control the weather. It was used to create Zenith Tempest. Following that, I had found a powerful spell dimension Lost Crew's Tellus Karma. As they most have guessed, their namesakes became the gears. The next thing I had to do was use my battle inspiration and sight to create Infinite Clear. The next thing that I did was find an inborn ability from one of my followers, the ability to create monsters. I took away his ability before strengthening it a numerous amount of times before using it to create Annihilation Maker, Elohim said before drawing in a breath. That explains 5 years of gears not remaining ones, Issei pointed out. I am getting to that, you imprudent brat. Damn brats of today have no respect for their elders. Anyway, the next thing is to seal with my little sentient in holy flames for the Incinerant Anthem. Before I sealed away the strongest ice demon of the time was for the absolute demise gear. Now then, 2 gears were the easiest to create, both of them named Lion and the other high-level yokai for the Regulus Anemikai and Sinus Lion. Now here comes the hard part. While the tech creations of the gears took several years and everything was going fine, if not a little slow, that was when things took a turn for the worse. Trix had started to move, and if I had little time to do things needed to be done. So I called for him from my former son, my oldest son, Lucifer, Elohim said. Wait. A minute, stop right there. Didn't Lucifer hate you? Issei asked with the slightest shock. Oh, he hated me, alright. I did a lot of things that I am not proud of. Among them, and they were my actions that led my son leaving me and starting his own faction. Anyway, I called Lucifer and the rest of the 4 Mao and explained everything to them. They agreed to help since it was the question about the future. Before I left, Drake and Albion to start their final battle, as they battled me and the 4 Maos weren't towards the Triaxa and used our bodies as magic to seal it. The seals were strong. They would have held for at least several millenniums. However, Triax's power was unprecedented, and the seals began weakening at a faster rate than expected, but the rate still gave it life at least several thousand years. With the sealing done, I called for the Saint Longinus, and the 2 of us left towards the 2 heavenly dragons who had left their long battle were exhausted. Then, as you know, I sealed the 2 of them in their claw and wings respectively, thereby creating the boosted gear and divine dividing. However, the last sealing and lack of my magic left me in just will and consciousness. As my consciousness came here, Saint Longinus still his power along with the create my spear in your hand, Itham explained. That was an enlightening history lesson, Itham, but it doesn't explain why you brought partner here, Drake cut in with a rumble. I'm getting you there, old friend. Don't get your panties into twists. As I was losing my consciousness, I saw a figure of a man having my spear with the power of the dragons by his side taking to the fight the Triaxa, and I believe that you are the one that I saw in my last vision. Elohim's stunned silence entered the plane. Oh, don't joke with that, oh son. I am just me, a dragon with draconic sacred gear. I am not some child of prophecy who carries the fate of the world for someone else's job. Hell then, even Vali is legible for this position, Issei said as he started to hyperventilate. Ilium tried calling out to him with a few times, but received no response. It was then he sighed expressively before looking at Drake with a questioning expression. Drake nodded his head before he whiffed at the tail of Issei, sending his sprawling to the floor. Oi, what was wrong? What was that for, you overgrown lizard? Issei shouted as a vein popped out of his forehead. Shut up and stop acting like a brat when anything has ever fazed you. So what if you're involved in a prophecy? Stop your tantrum and do what you usually do. Drake roared at him. Oh, then whatever do I have a problem? Issei then sucked and he folded his arms over his chest. You go around and mate with the beautiful blondes, I said with perverted leer. That is not all true. Yes, I do mate with them, but only if I solve the problem and is stress-free. Anyways, thanks guys, I am fine now. Issei said as he got rid of the blush on his face and taken a deep breath. Now then, it seems you are finally calm. Does this mean you are ready to have agreed accept upon your role in this prophecy? Ilium asked Issei. Meh, I don't believe in prophecies. They're a load of bullshit. I came on my own path, beat all those who threatened me and my loved ones, Issei said with a shrug. Well, that is the best I can get out of you. Now then, is to find whether or not you'll be able to use the true Longinus, Ilium said. Oh, and how will we do that? Issei asked curiously. Simple. We fight, Ilium said. Is the most simple thing ever. Nani? Issei shouted in shock. That's the end of chapter 26. The Prophecy of Gods and Angels. Now I'm going to end off this story right here. We have like 4 more chapters to go, so this is 26 and it ends in 31 because 32 is the epilogue. And if you guys are wondering why I skipped chapter 23, is because it's called The Notice and it was just something the author was saying about Harry Potter. So yes, thank you guys for all the support. And again, if you guys want to know when I exactly upload, I go on my community tab, press my channel members, and then I let them know. So there's a little blue button right next to the subscribe button, and you just press join, and I'll tell you guys when I upload. So thank you guys so much for all the support. 19,000, 20,000 on the way, boys. 20K grind. So without further ado, Spartanic out.